Planetary Dynamics, Writings by Sarah Calvin. Featured horoscope, the coronavirus, Wenliang, and the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. The World Health Organization declared the coronavirus a pandemic on March 11, 2020. The first official case of COVID-19 was a 55-year-old, from Wuhan, China, diagnosed on November 17, 2019. Astrologers anticipated events of great magnitude to develop near the time of the exact conjunction of Saturn to Pluto on January 12, 2020, when it completed and commenced once again its continuous 34 to 38-year cycle. The aggressiveness of the insidious coronavirus conveniently reflects the combined profile of these two notoriously feared planets. Their slow orbital movement allows a wide time orb of influence for a significant phenomenon to emerge in correspondence to its conjunction. The illness first appeared in the news during the third week of November 2019, as SARS-CoV-2. For slow-moving planets, the 2-month leeway for a manifestation of the conjunction is acceptable when comparing astrological events with their earthly counterparts. The two formidable planets have varying speeds that create a syncopated slow dance to the rhythm of retrograde and direct motions throughout 2020. As the year progresses, Jupiter joins in, as it approaches its new transit cycle with Saturn, commencing on December 21, 2020. Jupiter weaves in and out of conjunctions with Saturn and Pluto during the year, and will merge for its third, and final conjunction with Pluto, at the time of the U.S. presidential elections in early November. Saturn, merging its forces with Pluto at the January conjunction, exacerbated an otherwise normal display of disease, often identified by the ringed planet, and as a result of this ominous partnership, the world was brought to its knees. Pluto naturally defies constraints and endows stealthy microbes with free rein. The planet rules microscopic realms, and its invisible characteristics have promoted numerous theories, attempting to track the virus's origins. With the number of cases worldwide topping over 1.25 million, with an accompanying 70,000 deaths, as of April 5, 2020, the result is continuous global fear, anxiety, and panic, which are all the combined negative attributes of Saturn and Pluto. As the ubiquitous virus continues on its trek across the globe, an astrological picture gives poignant insights. The chart most likely to yield planetary connections with the pandemic should be one that adequately represents an entire world population. The inaugural chart of the United Nations is a good candidate, because the organization is comprised of 193 countries out of a global count of 195. This group of nations first pledged their affiliation on October 24, 1945, and its current functioning as a representative body gives the chart validity. There is a strong tie between the Saturn-Pluto conjunction and the UN chart. Shown with a red arrow in chart number 1, is an opposition aspect, applying from the exact transit conjunction of January 12, to the UN natal conjunction of Mars-Saturn. The transit conjunction also was opposite natal Mercury in the chart of the United States in January 2020, however, the more powerful indication lies with the chart of all nations, since it is a worldwide crisis, of which the United States is only a part. But the activated Mercury in the US chart does indicate why America was hit so hard. Mercury's decision-making processes, as far as simple procedures to take in containing the virus, has been confusing at best, and has sparked controversy and the polarization of approaches that confound the situation. This may be in part because the US has not dealt with a catastrophic pandemic since the Spanish flu of 1918 that started in the state of Kansas. Wenliang, the whistleblower. An integral part of the story of the coronavirus includes the life and horoscope of Wenliang, the physician and whistleblower, who notified his colleagues in a private group on WeChat social media platform concerning the sudden outbreak of a virus at the Wuhan Central Hospital in Wuhan, China. Li's concern was that patients were exhibiting severe symptoms similar to those displayed by the SARS virus, that infected 8,098 people, killing 774, in 2003. Li's leaked warnings alarmed the Chinese government, who sent police out on January 3 to reprimand and force him to sign a paper, stating he was making false comments on the internet. The Chinese Communist Party apparently was set to do a cover-up of what only was the beginning of a coming worldwide pandemic. Not long after, Li himself contracted the insidious illness, while performing an eye operation on a patient, who was later found to have been infected by the coronavirus. He was hospitalized, and soon succumbed to the disease. Li's natal chart is shown in chart number 2, with his progressions and transits of the day of his death in the outer two wheels. He was 33 years old, when he was officially pronounced dead on February 7. There was confusion over the actual time of death, and the procedures leading up to it. Millions of Chinese citizens had been tracking updates on his condition, that when his death was announced, it caused shockwaves and disdain throughout both professional and lay communities. His horoscope shows progressed Venus had been in a conjunction with natal Pluto, an indication that something rather deep was transpiring, and the progressed Sun was leaving its conjunction with natal Venus, another indication of the finalization of personal affairs. Other than transit Mars passing by progressed and natal Uranus, there are very few traditional transits of import. Transit chart number 3, however, shows distinct action by the transit Moon on the 8th house cusp, at the exact hour given for his death. The Moon's placement on the house of transitions, with the ultimate transition being death, shows an appropriate placement to indicate his physical expiration. The Moon, exact on the 8th house cusp, at 13 Cancer 33, sheds light on the deeper meaning of his acts and sacrifice, through its revealing Sabian symbol. He was a young man, with an old soul, on a mission that unfortunately was cut short. The words highlighted in bold, in the description of the symbol, give stark testimony to his contribution to society. Cancer 14. A very old man facing a vast dark space to the northeast. This is a symbol of the immeasurable reaches of past experience, as a strengthening of the human spirit for its immediate destiny, and of the eternal rebirth, through which man may discover that present aspiration and future achievement are without the slightest limitation in any terms of events to come. Here is an absoluteness of self, as a completeness of expectation. There are no dark moments of outlook that cannot yield inspiration or assurance. The key word is sanction. When positive, the degree is a highly effective enlistment of deeper and hidden elements of life, for some momentary end, and when negative, lack of purpose and utter chaos in understanding. The Sabian symbol for Jupiter, at 14 Capricorn 55, at the other end of the dynamic polarity is also revealing. The symbol literally describes a hospital scene, and clearly reflects Li's actual workplace. The sentence in bold font explains the randomness and capricious nature of the native's sacrifice, and the positive of the degree reveals his heroic potentials. Capricorn 15. Many toys in the children's ward of a hospital. This is a symbol of the inescapable richness of life in any normal manifestation of itself, here given emphasis through its ample rewards on the social and ideal side. There are physical and psychological limitations which come to all humankind without apparent reason, and which often seem a travesty of divine justice, but they are always an unrealized opportunity for a deeper fellowship. Experience is real in its fruits, rather than in the means to its ends. The key word is abundance. When positive, the degree is man's ability to develop the real potentialities of himself and his fellows, despite every transient accident of circumstance, and when negative, hypocritical sympathy and childish self-pampering. Transits 2020. The Saturn and Pluto transits. The Saturn-Pluto conjunction clearly identifies Saturn's individuality within Pluto's collectivity. Saturn's capacity for drawing boundaries created the measures that each country dictated to its citizens, that included closing bars and restaurants, and instructing residents to stay home and avoid large social gatherings, with which Pluto is associated. This powerful and extremely tense Saturn-Pluto configuration will remain effective throughout 2020, as these dominating planetary actors station to retrograde, reversing their direction and meaning from time to time during the year. In fact, the effects of what Saturn and Pluto brought to humanity with their conjunction in January, may not only continue to manifest throughout the remainder of the year, but perhaps even until 2023, at least for the United States, while Pluto completes its 248-year cycle return in the U.S. chart. At present, Pluto will station retrograde on April 26, 2020, at 25 Capricorn, and Saturn will do the same on May 11, at 1 Aquarius 57. Transit stations indicate an intense release of planetary energy, that requires a compulsory and critical regrasp of the immediate situation. Stations readdress astrological trends, and the present high number of COVID-19 cases may reverse along with the retrograde, and bring with it the possibility of remission. Pluto has already begun slowing down for its station in late April, encouraging a decrease of developing cases in the state of New York, the area with a higher death rate than any other place in the world. It is tempting to read premature positives into changes in planetary directions, but the late Dr. Mark Edmund Jones reminds us that astrology is the science of probability. Stations are markers for imminent change on the horizon, near the particular dates upon which they fall, but they should be suggestions, not hard predictions. Chart number 4 is the inaugural chart for New York City. It reveals that the high number of coronavirus cases and fatalities is due in part by the Moon degree's close association with the January 2020 Saturn-Pluto conjunction, occurring at 23 degrees Capricorn. The city's natal moon, circled in red, is located within orb of that point, and is also conjunct the U.S. natal chart's Pluto, that is currently moving toward its monumental return. As Saturn slows to station retrograde soon after Pluto, the reminder to shelter in place, and keep at a social distance, continues for the United States. Saturn is the planet that points to the cover-up and condemnation of whistleblowers by China, the slow to declare a world crisis by the World Health Organization, and in the US, the Trump administration's months of denials that the virus was a real threat, and for its slow response to hospital requests for testing, personal protective equipment and ventilators. Containment and mitigation are Saturn's methods of controlling Pluto's otherwise unstoppable spread of the disease. Although herd immunity has been suggested by some experts, as the natural way to ultimately conquer the disease, very few individuals are willing to risk their health or their lives by participating in that method of control, considering the aggressiveness of this killer virus. Transits Venus and Jupiter. The U.S. economy is also due for more fluctuation, with transit Venus coming to station retrograde 2 days after Saturn on May 13 at 21 Gemini 50. The station will be conjunct President Trump's natal sun, and will set off his natal opposition with the Moon. This will intensify the tension concerning his personal yet public image, and also will put pressure on his hopes to open the economy by putting people back to work. He will be back on the stage with his tendency to paint positive scenarios concerning the current state of affairs, along with the craving for adulation and approval, especially from his own Republican base. In an interview on April 10, with MSNBC's news anchor Brian Williams, the respected director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, Dr. Anthony Fauci, stated that he hopes that November could see some normality return. That projection parallels with the Jupiter transit making its final conjunction with Pluto in the early part of that month. The greater benefic may manifest in a more positive manner in November, than when it first made its rendezvous with Pluto in March, when it greatly expanded the number of those stricken with the virus, especially in New York, and other hard-hit cities and states. In other parts of the world, Jupiter had a kinder effect by lessening the spread, with some countries attempting to normalize and go back to work. Transit Pluto return. For the United States, the Pluto return plays a major role in the pandemic. The Spanish flu that devastated the world, and lasted from 1918 to 1920, was similar in its challenges with what we are experiencing during the present coronavirus crisis. Pluto will continue on its journey for the next 3 years, completing its return in 2023. These stressful and unprecedented times call out from each of us a deeper understanding of the requirements of Saturn, as the planet of individual self-conscious awareness, and of Pluto as the representative of the greater collective to which we are all a part. Social distancing has become the moniker of our times, with Saturn marking boundaries within our extended social arena. Each citizen is now called to be responsible for the care and welfare of all. More than ever before, we are our brothers and sisters' keepers.